Like they're coming off the ground, Bob. It looks like they're going to give Nicky Forak a run.
Yeah, John Nicky Forak just going on for a run here as Peter kicks towards the centre, but taken by Farmer. Out towards Nicky Forak. There he is, just come on the ground. Played quite well through the year, this fellow, and deserves a run in this grand final. John Hill. John Hill up towards a half-forward flank. Chance for Stephen Smith. Look at him, still going in this final quarter. Stephen Smith running in towards goals. He's about 20 yards out now. Gets his foot to the ball. No trouble. Number 6 for Stephen Smith.
A beautiful goal there from Stephen Smith.
It was for West Perth between 1968 and 1971 when we gained the services of Graham Farmer as coach, captain coach of West Perth. We had premierships, of course, in 69 and 71. And Graham, in 1969, we got off to a great year and a great interview, of course, with the premiership. And you had a great combination there with yourself and Bill Dempsey and a very well prepared team. What was your build-up for this game?
Well, I think the reason why we performed so well in 1969 is because we performed so poorly in the final series in 68. We were an extremely good side in 68, and during the final 2 games we went to water in the second semi-final and also in the prelim final against East Perth. And I suppose for a team that were expected to win a premiership and suddenly to find we weren't even in the grand final, it was a chance for us to redeem ourselves in 69, because we did have a very good combination. And not only was Bill Dempsey a fine ruckman, we also had Norm Nell in that time, and also Evans. He was an extremely good ruckman. He came across from Essendon, I think. He was the brother of Ron Evans. And it was an extremely good team that 69 won, and for us to win so convincingly, well, you know, it's something that you can, when things aren't going so well, you can always look back and enjoy.
That's right, Graham. And also, of course, the following year, 1970, with West Perth teams right throughout the history, it doesn't matter, you know, the change of players, change of coach, it doesn't matter, but following a premiership there seems to be a big slump, and in 1970 we slipped down to 6th place, and of course there are obvious reasons for that. Can you tell us?
Yes, I think the main reasons were that we did lose quite a number of players, and they were of a high standard. Johnny Wynn, the coach who's here now, John went to South Australia. Laurie Richards, he went to Victoria. Brian Sampson, he retired. Evans went back to Victoria, and there were quite a number of other players who I just can't remember at the moment. And so we did have a very good side in 69, and we just didn't have the numbers in 70. And I suppose you could then go on to that and say, well, what happened in 1971, which was the last year I was at the club? Well, in the time that I've known West Perth, and in the period that I was at West Perth, they've always had a very good committee. It was very solid. They'd been here for a long time. They knew what they had to do, and actually in 70 what they did, they procured a player in Peter Stewart, Phil Smith from Geelong, and Leon O'Dwyer, and these players, with the nucleus of the side that we had, were good enough to enable us to perform extremely well after fairly ordinary season. The season was so bad that I think we played East Perth on 4 occasions, and they beat us on the 4 occasions quite handsomely, and the 5th occasion was the grand final, in which we were fortunate enough to beat them. But we didn't have a very good year. We struggled all the year. In fact, we actually changed our style of play, and this was probably the reason why we end up winning the premiership, is we introduced that Hawthorn style play where they had all the players up the field and had an open forward line, and we relied on the pace of Stephen Smith and people like Stephen Smith, who once given the ball were able to break the opposition up because of their great speed and safe ball handling. And this was probably the reason why in the end bringing the 3 interstate recruits with experience in Peter Stewart and also Phil Smith and Leon O'Dwyer, and the fact that we did change our style of play, and maybe is because the players would have liked to have seen me go out on a winning note, because it was my last game of football, my last year of football before I was retired, and I was 36 years of age at that time.
That's right, and I also remember that the style of play was extremely aggressive, particularly in the grand finals and the final series.
Yes, I think when you've got players who are committed to get the ball and will suffer, whatever to get the ball. Their eye was on the ball, but at times the confrontations were that, you know, if it was a physical clash, but it was still a fair physical clash. There was nothing unfair about it. Like, we had no intention of fighting the East Perth team behind the grandstand or up in the toilet. All we wanted to do was get out onto the field and win the ball, and if we had to use physical harassment to do it, we did it, but it was within the rules laid down and controlled by umpires.
That's right, it was done extremely well too. Yes. One final question, Graham. In recent years, with league coaches who are playing coaches, they have a man on the sidelines, an assistant coach, who is allowed, even without consulting the coach, to make the move, which is fair enough considering the pressure, and I've been in that situation myself. And in your case, back in those days, was that the case? Or was
yes, it was the case. There was a selection committee. Roy Porter was the runner, and the moves were made, and Roy would come and tell me, and if I didn't like the move, Roy would just go and change it back. But there was no difference of opinion. The people on the sidelines, Ron Buick, probably Kevin Bradley, Len Harmon, and people like that, they were entitled to make a move. If it wasn't satisfactory, we'd soon adjust it. But when a playing coach, his first commitment is to play well for the side's sake, and he has got to rely on his assistants to help him to make the correct moves. If they don't work out, you can soon change them. As long as your runner can get out quickly, that's all that was required.